Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Thanks for joining the Antrea community meeting. Today is the first instance of the month of August. Of course, if you are in the United States, you live in the past and it's still July for you. In any case, jokes aside, let's go to today's agenda. We have two topics into this agenda. I will say two very interesting topics. We will start with a proposal about doing first-hand sampling live tracing in TraceFlow. I am just telling you what I was told as a topic for today, because I'm also very curious to learn what this is about. And Shu Yuan will be leading this presentation. And I am sorry if I did not get the right pronunciation for your name. And then we'll have talk by Anju about improvement to existing CI pipelines and new functionalities for Kind. So I think that since we have a fairly packed agenda, it might be best to start as soon as possible. And so let's start with the presentation about live tracing in TraceFlow. So please go ahead.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
So I'm going to give a presentation about introducing the first-hand sampling live tracing in the TraceFlow. So let's first quickly review the milestones of the TraceFlow feature. So initially, we support injecting a crafted packet so we can gather information about the entries running process, and then add some support for the live traffic TraceFlow. That is, we can capture the first packet that satisfies the given conditions, such that, for example, we can set some conditions like the packet headers. So, but only capturing the first packet is not enough. So we plan to add the sampling feature to the TraceFlow. We plan to add 3 sampling methods. The first is the so-called first-hand sampling. That is, we capture the first-hand packets. And then we have the interval sampling. We can capture 1 out of every n packets. And the third is the time interval sampling. This means capturing packets at a given time interval, such as 1 second. So we plan to implement the first-hand sampling first, because it seems the most simple. But there are some challenges to overcome when implementing the first-hand sampling. The first is that we cannot just use the CRD status to store our results, because they are too large. So currently, our solution is that we save the results on the disk of the nodes in the PPAP-NG format, and each node passively waits for the user's request to fetch them. The second problem is the possible OVS overhead. Because we, before the change, we only make OVS send the packet with the TCP, the first TCP packet, the TCP packet that starts the connection. So there is no problem. But to support sampling, we need to make OVS send every matched packet to the entry agent. So sending the packet means that the OVS process have to send a packet in message through sockets to the entry process, and this process requires many memory copy and the switching between kernel and user space. And also to process the packet in message in the entry process is always may incur high CPU overhead. So this may reduce the flow rate as well. Currently, the project set a rate limit of at most 100 packets per second. More packets than this standard will be dropped directly. We may need some benchmark to see if we can increase the rate limit, or we have to optimize the whole pipeline. I think a possible solution of the OVS overhead is that for the interval sampling, we can use the IP fix. The IP fix is a protocol for network monitoring, which is supported by OVS already. For example, we can add a flow to the bridge. So so the action is the so-called sample action. There's some parameters of the sample action. The first is probability. So for example, we set the probability to 10,000, means that we capture 1 out of 10,000 packets. And also we have a collector set ID. So the OVS will send an IP fix message to the predefined collector. And we have two parameters, OBS domain ID and OBS point ID. The OBS means observation. So these two fields are in the IP fix protocol message. So so the collector can know which flow are we tracing by reading the observation domain ID and OBS point ID. The current status of the development is that we have already developed an alpha version that can sample the first N packets and write the data to disk. But there's still a lot of work to be done. For example, we need to determine the final traceflow CRD design. And also, we need to find a way to design a user-friendly API to expose the traceflow results to our users. Also, there are some bugs to be fixed because we changed the OVS pipeline. And as I mentioned before, we may need to benchmark the overhead of this change. And we need to add some unit tests and end-to-end tests to verify the correctness of our code. So then I will briefly introduce the changes we made. The first is that we changed the traceflow CRD. For the spec part, we add a sampling field. The sampling field has two properties, method and none. Currently the method can only be the first N, and the none field determines the value of the N. But I think it's not very reasonable because if we set live traffic to false and still we assign a sampling, then there will be a contradiction. So I think a more reasonable way is to let sampling be a property of live traffic, like this. And the draft only property is the same, because the sampling and the draft only properties are all for the live traffic mode. But this will introduce a breaking change, so we may need to introduce this change in the new version, in the new API version. And also we change the fields of the traceflow CRD status. So we add a new field called the sampling. Currently, the sampling only have one field, the non-captured packets, which records the number of captured packets. So for the code in the Antrea controller, the main change is that the standard of the traceflow has changed. In the orange box, we can see that there is now another logic. If we are on the sampling mode and we set the method to be the first N sampling, then if we have captured enough number of packets, we set the status of the traceflow to be succeeded. And also, for the entry agent side, the OVF pipelines changed a little. Before the change, we only track the first packet. So as you can see, we match the contract state to be new and tracked. The new means that this packet is the first packet of a TCP connection. But for the sampling feature, if the sampling mode is on, we disable this contract state new condition. So we can track every target packet. But this change has also introduced some unintended side effects. So we now temporarily change the priority of this flow to be high. Previously, this priority used to be low, but this change also caused some bugs. So we need to find out the reason and fix the bug. And for the object update, we can see that before the change, we update every time we receive the packet in message. But for the sampling mode, this will cost too much resources because there will be too much more packet in messages. So we cannot update every time we receive the packet in message. So if we are on the sampling mode, we must add a update rate limiter, which limits the rate of CRD updates. And also, if we have already collected enough number of packets, we update the CRD immediately so that the controller can know the status of so the controller can know the status the trace flow has succeeded. And also, after we process the packet message successfully, we then write the packet to a local file in the pcap-ng format. This is done by introducing a new library, which is the Go packet. The Go packet is a library that provides the support for pcap-ng format, and the Go packet is the Go packet is maintained by the Google officially. So this is the all contents of my presentation. Thanks for listening.
Thanks a lot for this presentation. And do we have questions?
Actually, I have a question. You mentioned that the captured packets would be too large to be saved in the CRD itself. So, how could users retrieve the pcap-ng data from? How could they retrieve that? I didn't say it's mentioned in the slides.
Yes, it's a very crucial problem, and we have been working on it. But currently, Han Yan is responsible for this problem, and he's designing a user-friendly API. Okay, so Han Yan, could you please answer this question?
I can help answer this question. So we are planning to reuse the older method, like from the support bundle. So in the older version of support bundle, we use a aggregated API to retrieve the raw data from Kubernetes. For example, if when a user start a new request to fetch a specific support bundle data, we aggregate the files from the local and create a tar file, and we then using the HTTP API to return the data to the user. So only if the user start a new request, we give the data to the user. Otherwise, it's just stored on the local disk. I think the current version of the support bond is switched to a new. I think it's maybe a field server or something like that. But I think the older version of the support bundle is still working for our like condition.
I remember for the
Mm.
for the support bundle API. I mean not the latest support bundle collection CRD API. I mean the old one.
Yeah.
I remember it sent a request to each agent API server directly.
Yes.
So I guess this may not work for when you want to do something with CRD, but probably it could be done by Antrea's own CLI and CTL, and perhaps it could read some status from the CRD status, the CRD status, and start a direct connection with the corresponding agent and to get the data. It might be possible, but people who are not using NCTL may be difficult to get the data, right? Because they are not really aggregated in the same place.
Yes. So so in the design, I actually had add a new field in the status field of the trace flow CRD, which is called the like a package path. For example, we can generate a new HTTP path and we write it to the status field. So when user want to retrieve the data, he can either check the status field of the CRD, or he can use NCTL. I'm not sure if this is a good choice for user to retrieve the data.
Yeah. Perhaps it's the most practical solution. Yeah, I can think of.
Yeah,
I don't know other ideas. Yeah. And do we have a limit for the value of n? Because we store the data in agent directly. If it could be huge, I guess it's possible it could cause some disk issues if we don't limit the value. Do we have a upper limit currently in the design?
Yeah, I think there definitely is. So the problem is what's the exact number we should set. So we need to evaluate all the parameters like the storage size and the packet size. So before we actually, so in the pull request, we definitely need a upper limiter, but the actual size, I think we need more discussion or test to set a reasonable one. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
All right.
I have another.
Sorry.
In previous code, when we only support live trace, live traffic only, and capture the first packet only, and even when it's not a live traffic mode, I think we have a timeout for I guess it's a hard timeout, right? Or for the flows to match the target packets. and remember it's something like 5 minutes. And for first N packets, do we still need that, or we need to dynamically set the timeout according to N? How do we expire the flows for first N sampling?
Currently, currently there is a timeout field in the trace flow spec, and it has a default value. So if users want to trace for more time, you can just set the timeout to a larger value.
Okay, so the time out
I think,
sorry. Yeah, please go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah, sorry. So I think the hard limit is still working for all the sampling method. Even if we like add a new sampling method, we can treat the timeout field as a hard limit for all these choices. I think it's reasonable for user to understand the meaning of the field, and I didn't see any conflict yet between this field. So I'm not sure what's the if this is the best choice. Yeah.
My question was, if we still use the hard limit 5 minutes, is it enough to capture first N packets if N is a big value, and the connection has very few packets? Yeah, just a question. I'm not sure if it's a really valid scenario.
Yeah, like what's the minimal value for the timeout? I'm not sure. So I think it's a very rare condition, but we do need to consider this problem. I prefer to use the timeout as a hard limit, even if we don't have enough packets.
No, Quan, even today the trace flow for the timeout is from the spec. It's not a hard-coded one.
Really, it's from the user specified one, not okay.
I believe so.
Okay. Thanks for clarifying that.
By the way, I joined late. But just looking at the spec, I start to think, should we really reuse the trace flow CRD, or we should really have a new one? Because I think this tracing is a little different from the original trace flow in that you capture packets, right?
I think
like a new
has
feature.
Has the same proposal for this feature. Yeah, he can join into this. Yeah. Hello, hi, Shuyan. I think you have a similar proposal for this feature. Yeah, to create a new CRD. So what's in your mind?
I think it's a philosophy problem, and everyone has its own preference. But fortunately, I think that this function is different from the current one. So I think at least we need to, as I mentioned, we need to put the sampling property into the live traffic, not like currently we just add a new parameter.
No, the current live traffic tracing trace flow is different from what you guys are proposing, right? Today we just capture the headers and a very limited set of headers. We don't capture the packets.
Yes, I think that's the point. So indeed they are different.
So if we have a new CRD, we have the advance of like still copying the design from trace flow. I think the I'm not familiar with, but I think it use external file server. I think it may be better for the packet storage.
Yeah, in
I
this
think
feature, do you always
I-
want to
I-
capture cache, or it's option people can configure?
I think it's reasonable to expand the current live tracing. So even if we don't use the sampling, we could still collect the raw pack data as well. I think that will make the new function and current function
Okay.
consistent.
Okay.
All
Yeah, I
right.
don't have a strong opinion. Probably let's think a little more here. If it's
Okay.
indeed the consistent behavior, maybe we can reuse it. I think if it's very different, you want to add many new parameters, probably we should think about new CRD. That's my feeling.
Cool. Do we have any other question? And what are the plans for moving forward with this feature? So now you are, I believe, it's sort of a POC stage. Maybe are you already considering it including in some specific country release?
No, I don't think so. We didn't have that requirement.
I see. Okay. Nice. Right. So this is I don't know if we have any other question regarding sampling for trace flow. Waiting just 10 seconds. All right, it looks like it's all for this presentation. So thanks a lot, Shiwan, for doing this presentation. And then we can move to the next topic regarding the CI improvements, which should be led by Anju. So please go ahead.
Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. So hi everyone. Today I want to share few improvements to the existing CI pipeline. So currently I'm working on these 4 upcoming improvements. So first is use stop all stale job to kill job related to a PR. And second is run CI test in dual kind cluster. Third is run IPv6 CI test in IPv6 cluster. And last one is automated upgrade support for Jenkins kind cluster. So let's see one by one. Use stop all stale job to kill job related to ABR. So basically, here is the question is why we need this improvement or why we need this job. So like suppose you have created a PR and you trigger few CI tests on that PR to test your changes. And after 4 or 5 minutes, you push some new changes in your PR. Now, this time, you need to re-trigger your CI test to test your updated changes. So before re-trigger the test, you need to abort your previous job. So for that, you need to use Jenkins UI to abort all the running or waiting stale jobs on your PR. So basically, instead of using Jenkins UI to abort running or waiting jobs, you can use this stop all jobs to kill all the previous running test on your PR. So we can see in the workflow, if you trigger a CI test on the GitHub PR, then after some time you updated some changes in the PRs, then you need to abort this previous job before re-trigger the test. So for that, you can trigger this stop all jobs. So it will abort the all waiting or running job on your PR. And then after this, you can re-trigger a CI test again to test your latest changes. So basically in this, we have used Jenkins REST API to get information about the running and waiting jobs in the PR. And we have used Jenkins token to perform post operation in the Jenkins. And currently, I have enabled this feature only for the CABV related jobs. Why I have enabled this feature only for the CABV related job? Because in the Jenkins, like there is lots of jobs running, so we can't apply for all the jobs like this time, because otherwise it will impact some other important jobs. So once this implementation approved by the maintainers, although it is working fine for the CAPV jobs, but we can have a follow-up PR for enabling this feature for other Jenkins jobs. And next we have next improvement related to kind task. So we can run a network policy conformance and E2E test in kind dual stack cluster. Here I have created 3 Jenkins jobs. So we have here 3 trigger phases for the E2E and conformance and network policy. And its workflow is very simple. You can trigger any phase on the GitHub PR to test E2E test or conformance or network policy. And based on the trigger phase, it will create the kind cluster, kind dual stack cluster, and then it will run the CI test, whatever you have triggered. And after finishing the test, it will delete that particular kind cluster. Similarly, for the dual stack, we can run IPv6 CI test in the IPv6 cluster. Here, I have also created 3 jobs because it is very simple for the developer to trigger any test like E2E, conformance, network policy. So they can, if they want to test only one, if they want to run only one test like E2E, so they can trigger only one trigger phase. So its workflow also similar to the dual stack. You can trigger any test phase on the GitHub PR, and then it will create a new kind IPv6 cluster, and then it will run CI test based on trigger phase. And then after finishing the test, it will delete the cluster. And the last one is automated upgrade support for Jenkins kind cluster. So basically, we know that kind cluster currently running on the Jenkins pipeline, and it does not have the capability for the automatic upgrades. And on every kind release, we have to perform manual upgrade in the kind test bed, so which is inefficient. So to resolve this, I have added a Jenkins script named a kind upgrade.sh to support automatic upgrade, and its algorithm is pretty simple. So we can fetch, or we can get the latest version from the GitHub using curl command, and then we can have a existing kind version using command, and then we can check if latest kind version is greater than existing kind version. Then we can call a upgrade kind function, and in that function, based on the run OS, we can upgrade the kind in the test bed. And after merging this, the workflow will be like here. You can see first you trigger the CI test phases on the PR, then it will check for the kind version, and after that it will create the new kind cluster, whether it is IPv6, IPv4 or dual stack, and after that it will run the CI test, and after finishing the test it will delete the kind cluster. So these currently these 4 task is work in progress. So if anyone have any suggestion, or question, so they can ask. Thank you.
Hi, Andrew. I have a question for the first improvements you are making. Could it be done automatically without having users having to input the instruction? Because I remember in GitHub Actions, if we push a new commit, the previous one will be cancelled automatically, and I think it's the same for the Jenkins jobs. Even the jobs finished and succeed, its result will not be reported to the new commit anyway. So running them is usually meaningless. So could we just make it automatic?
Yes, yes, I got the question. Yeah, I can I can add that thing. We can like automate it.
Chen, another goal for this job is to clean up the previously CPV clusters. Since if we just abort the previous job, there could be some resources remain on the testbed. So we need this trigger freeze to clean up all redundant clusters on testbed.
But when you want to clean those test bed, you still want to execute it after somebody push a new change, or you want to just do it when anyone put this command into the command of any PR.
Yeah, I think like you said, we can investigate if for the new trigger freeze, so if we can clean up the cluster as a reaction behavior. So we can maybe add the cleanup actions in this function. It is answer your question.
Just want to confirm if I understand correctly. The clean up jobs triggered by this instruction is for clean up of test beds and jobs associated with this PR only, or is for global
yeah,
resource?
only with this PR.
Yeah, then what's the problem if we just make it automatic without user typing the instruction?
Yeah, Chad. So actually, this is like work in progress. So actually, this is like manually currently can be done, but yeah, it can be automated because it is based on the PR. So next time, like any changes gets posted, so previous running jobs will be cancelled automatically. Yeah, so that will be taken care of, like once this PR gets merged.
Okay, thank you.
Hey, Chan, I think one thing that comes to mind with the automatic approach is, well, it's not for most PRs, but right, sometimes when we are working on like the release PR, for example, I don't know if we want the jobs to be aborted automatically in this case, because when you're working on the release PR and you're editing the release notes, for example, well, you kind of like don't want to have to run those Jenkins jobs again if you got a passing status. If you know what I mean.
Yeah, I get what you mean.
But I think it's only a minority of the PR that or in this category.
Yeah, yes, I agree. But the jobs that will be cleaned up is the idle ones, or it could also be running ones. Okay, it said
both idle jobs and the run job will be clean.
oh, okay. Okay, then yeah, that scenario might be, if it's automatic, it might be cause some small problems. Yeah, as Anthony said. But my concern of the manual instruction is perhaps people wouldn't remember to type 2 commands. I guess it requires you type stop all stale jobs once and wait for the jobs to be terminated, and then you start another round of test. Perhaps it too good.
Yeah, maybe
sorry.
you can investigate it.
I just wanted to say, maybe like today, I think if someone does like test E2E and then pushes a change to the PR and types test E2E again, then we're gonna wait like 1 hour for the previous job to complete. And then we're gonna start a new job for the second command. Maybe in this case where we're typing like a command to run a job again and the previous iteration of that job has not completed yet, I think in that case, it would make sense to abort the first one automatically. Because we're basically running that job to completion for nothing in this case.
Yes, we provided to save some time for the developers.
Yeah, and people that have access to the Jenkins dashboard and know that can, like, of course, log in and kill the previous job. But for most contributors, even at VMware, that's not the case. They don't have that access.
Yes, and also if you just abort the job on Jenkins, the previous cluster will still remain on the CPV testbed. So this trigger freeze can also clean the redundant clusters for this PR.
Well, in that specific case, my 2 cents are for the cloud jobs. Obviously, I think we had a downstream trigger, which is there are 2 different Jenkins job. One is setting up the cluster and having the tests, and the other Jenkins job is a cleanup job. So when the test job is finished, the cleanup job is always triggered no matter what. So we could probably do something similar to make sure that whenever somebody kills a running job, which is testing on the CAPV, and it triggers the CAPV cleanup no matter at which point it was killed. That's something that we can also look into, I guess.
Yes, we can investigate if user aborts a job, then if the post action can be executed like the cluster cleanup function.
And I have a small comments for the second improvement. The phrase I see it use IPv6 -ds, but for the other dual stack tests, there's no DS. So I have no preference for this phrase. I just want all of related jobs could use a unified naming style to avoid people having to remember too many different phrases. Yeah, it could be with DS or without DS, but they should be unified, I think.
Yeah, okay, I will take care of. Can I stop sharing?
If there are no other questions, I guess so. Do we have any final question? Go in 3, 2, 1. 0. So yes, you can stop sharing now.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, so there were 2 very interesting presentations. Thanks a lot to both of you. And we still have some time allocated for today's meeting. So if there is any other topic that you would like to bring up for discussion, please go ahead, and I will be waiting as usual 30 seconds for topic proposals. And it seems that is all for today. So thanks everyone for joining, and I wish everyone a great day, a great evening, or a good afternoon. Thanks a lot again, and talk to you in 2 weeks' time.
Thank you all.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.